Or for like security. Okay. All right, we're gonna go ahead and call our meeting to order. I pledge allegiance to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we can take roll. Collins down. Matthew Phipps.
Present.
Stacy Selner. Here. Matthew Spalding.
Here.
Terry Trapp.
Here.
Tony Lust-Delisha.
Here.
And Kathy Lois. Present. Thank you. Okay, and a couple things, if it would please the board members, I would like to take the regular meeting minutes from the May 10th, 2022, the special meeting minutes on May 18th of 2022, and also all the committee reports, which would be the Finance and Budget, May 9th, Executive Committee, May 13th, and Personnel, May 18th, and Curriculum, May 19th. If it would be okay, I'd like to take all those together. If there is a motion and a second for that.
Make a motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion about any of those items? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. And we are on to the report of our superintendent, which would start with our personnel report. And do I have a motion and a second to approve the personnel report?
Yeah, I'll move. We approve this now.
Okay, is there a second? Second, okay. Any questions on either the personnel report or the addendum? Okay, all in favor of accepting the personnel report as is? Say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Mark, district update.
Yep, just another quick reminder of a few things that we've got on the calendar. Scholarship night is tomorrow night. Next Wednesday is the quarter century and retirement banquet. The following, a week from Thursday, is McKinley's graduation. And June 10th is Lincoln's graduation. So we've got a lot of things in the scope. We continue to provide opportunities for our kids to share some of their musical talents. So that's attached. And the end of the year also provides opportunities for our kids to start competing in the WIAA tournament. So that's happening this week, and we wish all of our musicians and student athletes luck. Just definitely want to share with you that our thoughts and prayers are obviously going out to some students in elementary schools. Our safety and security continues to be the utmost of importance in our district, and we do not take lightly the opportunity to enter our school buildings and make sure that we have a presence to support all folks. We will have opportunities for students and families and staff if in fact they need some support in our buildings. So just want to let you know that we're aware of some regional news and continue to be steadfast at providing safe opportunities for all.
Okay, any questions at all from Mark? Okay, now we're going to move to unfinished business, and our first unfinished business is our strategic plan vendor proposal. I did send all of you the two that we got. We are waiting on one from School Exec Connect. The gentleman, Kevin, who puts those out, He was gonna be out of town until today, and so he's planning on getting us one, towards hopefully the end of this week. So I didn't know, we've tried to get 3, so we can certainly move on the 2 that we have, or we can wait on, this 3rd one. So I didn't know, just any discussion about the 2 proposals we have so far, and does anyone have a preference on where they want to go from here?
You'd rather wait till we get the 3rd one.
Okay,
It's kind of on its way.
sure. Okay. All right, well, just wanted to give you an update on where that is, and so when that 3rd one comes in, and we'll have it on the agenda, we can solve for which one that we'd like to do, or go back to the drawing board if we don't like any of them. Okay? All right, great, thanks. Okay, so the next unfinished business item is the future health protocols and modifications. And this stemmed from one of our parents came and requested that we talk about this issue. And so we kind of have 2 things, and I'd actually like to make a motion that we would suspend the current COVID plan for 2021-22. This is also known as the COVID protocol, and that would be effective immediately. So I'm looking for a second to that motion to suspend that. Okay, any discussion about that? So you guys, I believe, was that attached?
Yes.
Okay.
The changes, yes.
Yeah, so the last update was April 11th, and so what I'm just asking that this be suspended, and that any further protocol we would come back to if we needed to. So any further discussion on that? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. The second thing that I would like to make a motion on is to rescind the action that the board gave the authority of the COVID protocol to the superintendent. I'd like that to be rescinded effective immediately. And I'm looking for a second. Okay, and any discussion on that?
I wasn't displeased with how the superintendent handled it. I do think that any going forward on this, it's got to be kind of a shared division of labor. Maybe decision making, we can be part of that.
Yep.
But I don't know. I thought Mark did a great job in the 2 years that I was.
Any further discussion?
I just think the board should have the final say.
Okay. Anything else? All right, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, and the next item is policy 2240. Again, this was an issue that came up during public input. There was a parent that addressed the board regarding a topic that came up at Washington. It was a presentation that they didn't approve of for their child. And so what we are going to do is we are going to look at policy 2240. So this is really an update on that, because we did talk about it briefly at curriculum. Curriculum is actually going to look over that policy, just tighten it up, see if there's anything that we need to change on that. I did get Joyce forwarded me Neola's. I know I saw today on social media that someone was requesting that to make sure that this policy is looked over by an attorney. So just so the public knows, we do hire a group called Neola that does look over that. So we've gotten that policy. I believe they redid it in 2021. So I'm going to be forwarding that over to the curriculum committee so that they can look at that and that they can address that. Yes.
So I guess, and Mark, maybe you could allude to or help on this. What other policy writing companies are out there other than Neola?
I can't.
That you're aware of for
speak to
schools.
one off like off the cuff, I'm not, I know that there are some districts use other avenues to write policy, but I am not familiar with others. I mean, I could do some investigation, but I don't know that.
Okay.
Other than, I'm familiar with in the districts that I've worked with, I would say that Neola is, by far the most prevalent, but I know there are some districts that use others. So, but I'm not sure whom they are.
And I'm trying to think, didn't somebody recently bring us like 5 different, was it the ad hoc?
Angela, yeah,
Angela.
but those were from other schools though.
Well, sure, but they weren't all Neola, is what I'm saying.
In some districts, we'll write here.
Right, and then have their attorney look them over, so that's always an option.
Yeah, I would think so. Have an attorney look at whatever we want to do. It's legally sound, and we proceed with that.
Right. So, and then I think the other thing was, I had asked Mark, Mark gave me an update on just kind of the transaction of events. It sounds like, do you want to say what? Did you find out?
So there was some question about the process that was used when an item that the parent thought was controversial was brought to the school. So in this particular case, there was a student group, and I believe they called themselves Green Orange Club, is what the term was, and they were just a student group. There at Washington, their group was mentored or oversaw by one of the school counselors. One of their work that they did was look at the youth at-risk behavior survey and some of the outcomes. So Manitowoc students have an opportunity to take that every 2 years. And so they looked at that data, and one of the data points that they received from there was that mental health was a concern for middle school children. So with the partnership of the adult, they reached out to some professional agencies within the Manitowoc community and taught them about presentations that they could make in regards to student mental health. The one that was brought to the board was one that was brought forward by a professional mental health organization in Manitowoc that talked about the significant, the data shows significant increase in the number of suicides and mental concerns with students who identify as LGBTQ. So that was something that was brought forward. That was the conversation, and the students were talking about mental health and how they can help themselves and help their colleagues and peers to support each other in being good, kind human beings and supporting each other. That was the transpiring of this presentation.
Thank you. So we were looking at, we were trying to find where that best fit. And so what we're going to do is look at that policy and just make sure that when there's a controversial issue that does come up, that parents are notified about that, so they can make a decision about their child participating. And that, in my discussion with Mark, we also talked about, do our teachers and staff, need to be refreshed on making sure that everyone knows that this policy exists, and making sure until we have that policy redone and reinforced, that we just ask them to use that as a guide, so that before we have that looked at. So I'm going to refer that to you at the curriculum committee to look at. And like I said, I have the 2021 version of NOLA as a starting point, or for your committee to decide if we want to use that or something else. Great. Okay. Any other discussion about that, or?
The only thing that I'd like to call, I asked a question is I kind of looked at the information that was presented, and there was obviously on top of the PowerPoint presentation, it was a consulting firm out of Appleton. So I don't know where that is from Manitowoc, but maybe I'm incorrect, but it looked like a consulting firm out of Appleton that was providing the PowerPoint information. So I just call question that or ask more about it, but it didn't seem like it was a group from Manitowoc that the information came from, but maybe there was a group of kids, but You just kind of looking into it a little more.
I would have to look, I don't want to say, but it might be that there's a office in Manitowoc, and that's where the people came from.
Okay.
So
Like a branch.
a branch in Manitowoc. And the people didn't, the information that I had received, people didn't travel from. And I'll double check to make sure I'm not giving you information.
Just an addition, I actually, after reviewing what was brought forth to the students, I personally didn't see anything wrong with it. It looked like it was good information, it's talking about suicide risks and things like that, and that can be a touchy subject, and I understand that. But it's just one of those things that I really strongly feel that parents need to be in charge of whether their kids participate in those things. So that's where I strongly come into where I think that if there is any of those subjects come in or anything in there that may be considered a, what do they call it? Touchy subject or whatever. Controversial. That the parents have significant notice and they have an option to opt their child out. That's all.
And I would just like to add, I think they should have to opt their child in for anything that's sensitive. Just knowing that some parents may not even, depending on how the communication's routed, they may not check their email or they may not, whatever. So if there's any question on the sensitivity of the material, I'd prefer to see an opt-in option.
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
So what range of information for activities
Controversial. Here, controversial.
in class and out of class,
Well,
or all of the above?
Well,
Anywhere in school?
the policy,
Anywhere in school. Wow, that's-
well,
Okay, go ahead.
yeah, I mean, that's what the policy is going to, I mean, it does talk about all that stuff already.
Okay,
So, and I think the idea is to remember that this isn't about, not talking about controversial issues, because we do right now. I mean, I think I gave an example of, in the high school, I know that there's a class that delves deep into controversial issues. It's more the matter of, are those being presented both sides of the issue? And certainly in this class that I looked at, they certainly do. But it's a matter of, we have a policy that states how controversial issues are going to enter into the realm of education, and that we're asking this board and especially the curriculum committee to look into that to make sure that it's very clear and that we all know what that is. And then our community.
But controversial, quote unquote, controversial issues is very subjective. And I mean, I've had students that, I mean, I've actually literally had students who are flat earth people. And they object to, any kind of thing that is required reading that deals with, the spherical nature of the planet.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. And I mean, who gets to define controversial issues?
Well,
Karen?
like I said, it's in the policy what refers to a controversial issue. Helen.
So I'm going to touch on what federal law states right here. 20 U.S. Code subsection 1232H. Protection of pupil rights. Inspection of instructional materials by parents or guardians. All instructional materials, including teachers' manuals, films, tapes, or other supplementary material, which will be used in connection with any survey, analysis, or evaluation as part of any applicable program, shall be available for inspection by the parents or guardians of the children. Section B, limits on survey, analysis, or evaluations. No student shall be required as any part of applicable program to submit to a survey, analysis, or evaluation that reveals information concerning political affiliations or beliefs of the student or the student's parents, mental or psychological problems of the student or student's family, sex behavior or attitudes, illegal, antisocial, self-incriminating, or demeaning behavior, critical appraisals of other individuals with whom respondents have close family relationships, legally recognized privilege or analogous I don't know how to say that word.
Analogous.
Thank you. Relationships such as those of lawyers, physicians, or ministers, religious practices, affiliations, or beliefs of the student's parent, or income other than that required by law to determine eligibility for participation in a program or receiving financial assistance under such program without the prior consent of the student. If the student is an adult or emancipated minor, or in the case of an unemancipated minor, without the prior written consent of the parent. So there is federal law that does back this policy and it just needs to be followed. That's all.
But that policy is not applicable to, what we would call, you're talking about surveys there, which is like a youth at-risk behavior survey, where we get analysis. We're talking about controversial issues in the classroom, not reviewing materials. We have a policy on reviewing materials. But I think you're trying, I mean, I understand what you're saying. There is a federal code, but that's not what we're talking about in.
I could read you what a survey definition is
Right.
under the federal law.
I understand what you're saying, Tom. What I'm saying is that I don't believe that the curriculum committee is going to talk about surveys. That's not what we're talking about.
Surveys is simply instructional material that the instructional material means instructional content that is provided to a student regardless of its format, including printed representational materials. And I could go on, but
I'm familiar with what it is.
That's actually what they were handing down.
right. So it's, it's not attacking what was presented. It's simply saying we have to let the parents know.
Sure.
And we should let them know in advance. If you want to,
I just want to clarify, to our community, to follow policy, Mark, were you notified and did you approve it? Because that's a policy.
I agree. I think where we're talking about, I wasn't notified, but I approve what we're talking about. And this is the question I think that the curriculum committee has to have, is talking about mental health and using the acronym LGBTQ controversial. And if it is, then we need to determine that, and then we need to pull back on using language of talking about acronyms. That's the only thing I think that would be deemed as controversial. Mental health would not be deemed as controversial, right?
I understand what you're saying, but the policy says issues pertaining to human growth and development. So we can use buzzwords, but it's human growth and development. So that's where the policy is there for reasons.
Right. I would tell you that human growth and development is significantly different than what we're talking about mental health. Human growth and development is talking about the development and growth of young adolescent children, of which we ask the parents in writing to approve their child being involved in that. That is a very different process than what we're talking about in controversial issues in the classroom. We have a policy, and if parents we're talking about their adolescent growth and human behavior through health or those educational pieces, there's a signature that we give to parents to notify them of that piece. That is currently occurring.
And I would say that, remember that we're talking about how to button up our policy if we need to, right? We want to make sure everyone's following that policy, whatever that is. And so what's going to happen is curriculum is going to look at it. They're going to do the bulk of the work. Then the new policy, if there is a new one, is going to come to the board. It's going to be read twice. And so we are all going to be able to talk about this again. And I encourage you, those that are passionate about this, to participate in the curriculum committee, to voice your opinions, and for the public to, let people know also what you're thinking. But remember, this is an overall policy, and I think that, again, it's not necessarily that the argument is it's not going to be that we're getting rid of controversial issues. It's how are we going to notify those that may not want to participate in certain controversial issues. Okay, so I appreciate the energy, but we're going to bump this to curriculum. One more thing, yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I think it's crucial that, parents that do, if we go with an opt-in policy, I think they should see any material that goes along with the presentation. And the only reason I say that is, the way Mark described it sounds good, right? Obviously, everyone wants to prevent suicide, with all of our children. And then, what might not be as obvious, if you look through that presentation, there's things in there that, a lot of people that might like the way that it was framed, like Mark just said it, but if they see the bearing on pronouns, for example, there's probably gonna be a lot less people that are gonna be, very adamant that, hey, we should do this, or this is a good idea. So these are, controversial issues with heated opinions on both sides, and I think that, if we're gonna go down this road, we should definitely make sure that it's fully transparent to our community and all of our parents.
Okay, so we're gonna, so we'll bump into curriculum, and again, like I said, those that, please participate. Okay, moving on.
For point of, when is that curriculum scheduled, so those people can participate?
We'll do that.
Yeah, we'll yeah, we have, future meeting dates coming up. We'll talk about that. Okay, all right. Next thing is some items that were brought forward from the May 18th Personnel Committee meeting. We had 3. One was that we wanted to increase our English language, our EL staffing. Another one was our special education staffing recommendation that we would have a 1.0 teacher of visually impaired. And then the other one was also a handbook policy, a work from home policy. All of those had a motion and a second coming out of committee. If it pleases the board, I would like to take all of these together, and we can talk about all of them. There's a motion and a second for all of these. So is there any discussion on any of these items that came from personnel? And I will just say that I believe our staff did a great job of presenting the case of what they needed. They gave us the information, the financial piece. Angela was there as well. So, we would, our committee would like for us to, we make a recommendation for these 3 things.
The only discussion I would like to point out is there's obviously a need in our district, so that's why we're trying to fulfill it. It makes sense to us that it's going to be figured into our next budget, obviously, because of the need coming through the next fiscal year.
Okay, any further discussion on that at all? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, and then items brought forward from the May 19th Curriculum Committee. We have some out-of-state travel that we need to approve. Again, if it pleases the board, I would like to take all of these together. I believe there was a motion and a second for all of these. It's a football competition in Levington, Michigan, boys soccer competition in Levington, an advanced placement U.S. History professional development event, and then also the Kids at Hope Masters event as well. So we do have a motion, a second out of the Curriculum Committee. Any discussion on any of these?
How come the AP Institute teachers attending, which is, sounds like a really good thing to do, is not a budget item. It's not costing.
It is.
It is?
Yeah. Kids at Hope and football and soccer are not costing anything, but the AP history is around, I forget which was it, around $2,500. Could have that real quick. It is. It's
Probably have the request.
let me look quick. $500.
$500. Okay.
Yeah, so it's like $750.
Okay.
It's around $2,500 for the AP history.
It's all expense 14.4.
Okay,
I think it's because Carrie wants to go along.
great.
Oh, it sounds like.
That could very well be.
I wish somebody had sent me to one.
Yeah, so to make note,
I still don't see where do you see?
Inside there's the last page.
the,
This would have been the. I'm sorry.
Oh,
it
yeah.
was the dollar amount.
Okay, totally.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Reimbursed. It would be
1424.
more than that.
Yeah.
But it will be cost, it will cost like. and of course,
Oh, yeah, the fuel.
The fuel.
Yes.
Yeah, that was,
That's gonna be different.
it'll be about $400, I thought, so I.
Yeah, it's a good program.
So, but out of all four things, guys, they're all not costing our district anything. Football and soccer is coming out of their activity account and booster club. And the Kids at Hope is coming out of a grant from the Department of Ed. So the only one that costs is me.
And this is a training on how to help the teacher prep the kids for the AP test. So super great. Okay. Any further discussion at all? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, other business. And unfortunately, you're gonna have to hear me talk a little bit here because most of these are just discussion items. So one of the things I'd like us to do is to have what's called a consent agenda. And that would be anything that comes out of committee, like the recommendation. I don't want to say non-actionable items because we need to take action on the minutes, but it would be like the minutes, kind of like how I did tonight. We would lump all those things together. Now, you're going to get an opportunity to remove anything that you want from the consent agenda, and it goes on the regular agenda. So that'll be the first item that we have. It'll say, this is what's in the consent agenda. You'll see it all. Does anyone want to remove anything? So it's not like we're not going to talk about it, but then if not, then we just approve all that stuff, and it just makes our meetings faster. So if anyone had just wanted to throw that out there, are there any objections to going to a consent agenda?
Would there be any type of time limit as to when I decided, saying we were going through or looking at all this stuff, the boys soccer ball, say I wanted to talk about that one instead of lumping it together, could I do that right now at the meeting?
Yes, well, so two things. One, the consent agenda is gonna be adopted that night. If there's anything that night, I'm gonna say, does anyone want to remove anything, or are we gonna adopt this?
Right at the meeting.
Right at the meeting.
Okay, that's
Yep.
all.
And so if you want to remove something, you can do that. Tonight, what we did is, since all these came from committees and we had a motion and a second, and we went right into discussion, we didn't have to take anything on or off, but we can talk about any of these, okay? But it's a little different than the consent agenda. But no, that night, you're gonna be able to say, I don't want this in consent.
I
I want
make
it
sure
to.
I'm locked in anything.
Yep. Nope.
Nope.
Okay, is that okay to everybody? Okay, super. Okay, so committee agendas, a couple things on committees. Traditionally, how our committees have worked is that the directors will contact us and we'll set up a meeting, and they have agenda items and we have agenda items. I'd like to propose that we have that be a little more of a collaborative process, because I think there are things that we are now, especially when they even come to the board level, such as this policy, that we're kind of dishing stuff off to committees. And so we may have, the committee members may have some things that they would like to see on committees. So I'm just asking that the directors and the chair work together to get those on the committee. And so that a committee meeting doesn't have to be just requested by a director. There might be some things that are already on it from the committee that they would say, to the director, do you have anything? Because we'd like to meet about these other things. Okay, so just it's a little different than what traditionally has been done. Not too much, but
I think that, well, I don't know, my experience is because it's sort of worked that way. Especially with Joyce. I mean, anything I thought should be on the agenda, what was always on the agenda. And I thought that was good, except I think that what this change does is it does allow a chair or even a committee member to take an initiative to say, I want a meeting and I want this on.
Right.
So I think that's probably a good.
Yeah, and again, I mean, these aren't things to suggest that what was doing wasn't correct in any means, or I just think it helps, because people are coming to me often and going, can I have this on a committee? And I'm like, talk to your chair and you guys get together your meeting and
Sure.
make that happen.
Yeah.
So I think that just allows for some good discourse to get those things on. And any other comments or questions? Okay. Perfect. Just a couple other things about committees. Another one is, so we got this, or this sheet you guys have probably seen, it's committee assignments, and it says, and you can see I doodled when I'm like doing meetings. This is when I'm on the phone with Mark. Anyway, but it's committee assignments 2022-23. So I was looking on this, and there are some, and Mark and I were talking, and then I also sent a message out to some of our directors. Some of these committees are non-existent anymore, but yet we still have them on this list. Mark was telling me that, so for instance, did everyone know we have an employee relations committee? And we also have an administrative relations committee. Historically, in talking to Mark, when there was before Act 10, these were committees that were necessary. And since we don't have those anymore, I'd like to just clean this up because we have it on our website, but we're not using them. So the other one is the city recreation board. Well, the city got rid of their recreation board. So we were having our representative, our athletic director, sit on that. Well, it doesn't exist anymore. So it's kind of like, why do we have that on there? So, and then the only other one, because I did hear back from Jason about the drug-free schools, the school forest, and the gifted and talented. Those are curricular advisory committees that we do. But the Business Education Partnership Council, I did not hear anything about that, and it doesn't sound like we've done anything with that. So what I'd like to suggest is that we have Lori remove the Employee Relations Committee, the City Recreation Board, the Administrative Relations Committee, and the Business Education Partnership Council from this document and also our website. Yes.
So I agree it should be cleaned up. I don't know, just because they're not using them anymore. I don't know if that would be, just because they're not being used, that we should get rid of. Some of them may actually have a good use. It just maybe is a reminder that maybe as we try to facilitate things through committee in the majority and then move to the general, that some of those vehicles might be better drivers than some of the, and we did have a student organization that reached out to us that they were interested in having the students participate in a committee. And that has yet to be discussed and how that would be built and formed. But, there are other opportunities, like especially like with the business one, we have a business person that does like, the
School work.
School of work.
yeah,
or-
school of work. So that person would probably be a perfect person, and then it would be a great way for us to, hey, that these are the community partnerships that we're building. If a company wants to do or get involved in some way, shape, or form, that this would be an opportunity for them to, make a proposal through that committee. And yeah, I guess I'm just thinking out loud.
So one of the things that I totally agree with you, the Employee Relation Committee, Administrative Relationship Committee is mostly board officers for the most part. And so one of the things I would suggest is when something comes up that doesn't fall into our traditional committees that are in our bylaws, that we meet as an executive committee and we decide where that is going to go. And because there was something that was called the Business Education Partnership Council, it just doesn't exist anymore. It wasn't a committee, I don't think, that we made up.
Right.
And again, I would kind of say if that is an initiative of some sort, that would go through curriculum and then we get a report back, right? So because the more ad hoc committee meetings we have, the more meetings that we're all going to or being a part of. So if we can somehow use our committees that we already have and create one as needed, I think we can narrow this down if that would be okay with everybody.
think keeping it fluid is the key, that we all recognize that we can always add something.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely.
saying we're taking something off doesn't mean it's gone forever.
Right,
Or
and what
it cannot
happened,
come
yeah,
from,
and what happened was, is I was looking and Lori said, hey, could you give me a couple names of people that you want on these committees? And I'm thinking, well, gosh, I've been on a year and I don't know that I've ever even heard that this committee met, and that's what kind of led me to research it a little bit.
Kind of outdated form.
Exactly, and so absolutely, we can create committees galore if
Yeah, I
you
was
guys
gonna
want to
say,
do that.
can the board create a committee with a simple majority?
Absolutely, yeah, sure.
Yeah,
So it's just really kind of cleaning this up,
Yeah.
bringing it to everybody's attention, and if we need a committee or we're feeling like the ones that we have are meeting what our needs are, then, you know, again, bring it out of committee or bring it individually and say, let's do this. Okay? All right. Last thing about committees is, so as we have struggled with the personnel report, probably me more than anyone, of this, getting the personnel report, and maybe having some questions about some things that are on that, the content. One thing that Joyce had suggested was that the chair of personnel, which happens to be me this year, but the chair of personnel would get that before it goes into board book. And so on Friday, the chair would get that. And then on Monday, the addendum would come out. And then by noon, that if there were any questions regarding that the personnel chair would say, hey, can you give me some more information? Or at that time, we would take that person off of there if it was an issue to talk about next time or later. So then we don't have the issue that we ran into last time about, you know, a position being on there. Because a lot of times it's not necessary, it's not about the individual person, it's about the position that's kind of like, oh, I have a question about this. And then us not being able to talk about that in an open session. So this would be a suggestion on how to be able to look at that, look at personnel prior to it going on board book. And yes, Colin.
And then sometimes, I think this is what we discussed about the funding girl thing in exec, is that what the, kind of there?
both of them.
Am I correct?
Well,
It was
we
in the
haven't,
minutes.
yes.
So
we-
there.
Go ahead, go ahead.
So we had the discussion about, you know, the personnel matters and getting approval, right? So like right now, the way we get the personnel report is, you know, some of these people, they're already working. Some of these people, they're just waiting for that board approval rubber stamp of, yep, good to go, let's get on board. There's always been the time pressure that's been said that, you know, we have this time pressure that we have to adhere to get these people into their positions, and waiting on board approval and putting it through committee. It can be a matter that it can complicate the matter. So the idea was to, when it goes through personnel report, as they're going through their process, because most likely the process isn't going to take, you know, less than 2 weeks. If it does, well, then obviously, you know, figure it out from there. But they're going to have to go through their background checks. They're going to have to go through all these different things. So when they first come in, they're, you know, the person has been addressed, and then pending approval of all those, pending approval of that person meeting the criteria that HR then dictates, they would be a board approved at that point. So it's kind of giving the, you know, the board is giving their approval pending the things that they're specifying are needed to be done. And it doesn't hold up the process. It's just allowing another set of optics into the, but personnel would then be able to weigh in. It was kind of a touch that the committee would then be participating, not just being seated at the general.
I guess I'm confused as to why we want to do that. I mean,
Yeah, so.
we've never seen the candidates that are either retiring, resigning, or being hired. We didn't receive a resume.
Okay, so, right,
So why, on what basis would we object? I mean, there might be some, but I think I think I trust the, the ability of the administrators who. But go ahead.
So the thinking behind that is, I mean, I look at the board as more than just a rubber stamp person, right? We're here to discuss, the things going on in the school, to oversee the things going on in the school. I don't look at the position that I have here as just a, yep, next, yep, next.
Oh, yeah.
I believe that this is simply just part of the process where we are doing our diligence to what we're doing. It's not, the accommodation is that we don't hold up the process as well.
Yeah.
And I guess it's just trying to make sure that we are just not rubber stamping things. Because if there is something that comes up where, hey, we have an issue, rather than us sit here and debate something for an hour in the general meeting.
which we can't anyway because,
Yeah, it's good.
Right.
Right.
So therefore, is the proper vehicle. It's just it just seems that this would be
I think it brings transparency to the process because then the community is informed the trends that the district is going in. So like hypothetically, if we can inform people that, we're gonna need more teachers for a demand of English as a second language, we can be informed, so the transparent, all I see from it is good that the transparency is brought to the community. Instead of just saying, well, we're gonna do this and then we approve it. It's like kind of preemptively telling the community, this is what we need, this is why we need it, this is what we're gonna do. It's just transparency.
yes,
I was just gonna reiterate what you said, that it's not necessarily that person, sometimes it's the positioning. If you have questions, like you said, we can't discuss it in an open format. So this allows us to get those things squared away first before it's put out and create confusion.
We can talk about positions. Yeah. We do.
well, sure, but it's a sticky wicket because like last session we had, everyone could figure out what I'm talking about.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And I
But
think,
we wouldn't have caught that on the personnel.
well, sure, because that's when I
I
saw
mean,
it for the first time.
honestly, didn't you find out after the fact that it was a question?
No, I'm talking about just this last one. What happened was there were a couple positions on there that I had questions about, but because they already had names attached to them, just trying to even talk about the position was a little sticky.
Okay.
And I felt bad because I felt like Joyce was put on the spot, thrown under the bus, I like to say. Probably by myself, unintentionally, but because I had questions about this, and so it's Carrie, I think it's more of, it helps the process, that we don't get slowed, that nobody looks at that personnel report and goes, oh my gosh, what's going on? Like, what about this and what about this? So that personnel gets to look at it, make sure any questions are answered, so that when it comes to the full board, it's not to micromanage and go, oh, well, I want to see so-and-so's application. I mean, we don't have time to do that.
I just don't want to get into that.
No.
It's just like,
This is more to just, to answer those questions that may come up on a personnel report that somebody might have a question to. Yeah.
In a nutshell, I think it's about being proactive rather than reactive.
That's a great way to put it.
yeah.
Anyone else? Okay, so Joyce and I are gonna start that process then between our next meeting. So I'll look those over, make sure that it doesn't, and ask her any questions that I might have that I think that you guys might have, so that we have an answer for everything that comes up and you see it.
I guess I just thought of this. Do we have anything in policy that is going to be required to be changed to support that as far as process goes?
I don't think so, but another thing is we're
Okay.
gonna start looking at all our.
Right, yeah, I just want to
So
make
if
sure
it
we're still
comes up-
following policy.
Yeah, so if it comes up, I'll certainly.
Okay.
do that, but I don't think so.
money, you know, I just want to clarify.
Yeah.
I believe what Pete states, and I think we're on the same page. Again, just to try to, I don't think anyone wants to bottleneck the process.
Absolutely.
Environment narrative right now.
Yes, which is a heavy hire. We don't want to bottom up the process.
So my understanding is moving forward, the Friday before a board meeting, instead of uploading like Lori does now, instead of uploading the personnel report in board doc, I'm gonna share that with Stacy instead. And she can look at it over the weekend, she can like, ooh, something, I need to know more about this. And then if there is anything, she's gonna call me, we're gonna talk on Monday. She doesn't think there's any, either way, she's gonna give me the green light, yep, get it on board book, it'll go on board book on Monday. If there is an agenda, it comes out on Monday, because we're hiring people over the weekend. If there's an addendum, I can share that as well with Stacy to give her the opportunity as the personnel chair to see if she sees anything that she wants an explanation on. If not, we'll get that in board book Monday night, Tuesday morning. Correct? I think that's what we talked
Yes,
about.
yeah,
With that.
yeah. Colin wondered what about everybody else?
So the reason that I say that is like, what about so like Stacy is the chair of the personnel committee. Well, that's Stacy.
Yeah.
But you know, some other members of personnel, especially members of personnel, they may have those concerns. Would it be possible to have that, you know, when they start the process of hiring, where, you know, day one, say it's Tuesday today, right? It is Tuesday. But they're coming aboard, the next personnel meeting, they would be on that, once they, even if they're not fully through the process yet, that person is then being discussed. Right next to it, here's where they're at on the process, you know, obviously, then once it comes through at the, you know, for the general meeting, if it's not completed, if there's still work to be done, pending approval, and then move forward.
I guess I would respectfully, the HR would respectfully be not sure would support that. Keep in mind, when the person's name, whether it's a custodian, a teacher, a aide, when it goes on the personnel report, this right here, that you all see, by the time it shows up on here, they've been extreme interviewed, sometimes interviewed a second time, references have been checked, background checks have been done. We've been completely vetted. I have called them to talk to them, to offer them the position pending board approval.
Right.
So we're talking salary, benefits, you know, whatever questions. All that is done, and then it goes on this report. So we've gone through that whole vetting, you know, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
The interview, the second, you know, however many interviews are involved, reference checks, background checks.
So
I called the person and offered them the position, offered them a wage, talked about, you know, and be more approval. And then I say to the candidate, the board meets on, you know, so I would have said to so-and-so on here, the board will meet on Tuesday, May 24th. That's the last step in the process, you know, for them to, the board technically approves all hires.
What I, because I don't want this to go on too long. Colin, I know what you're saying, and I think that it would call for further discussion on how to do something like that, to not let it slow down and kind of, you know, we've talked about dashboards, we've talked about, you know, different kinds of things. So let's just, we don't need to decide on it today. I think this would be a good thing that we do going forward in the short term, and that we can revisit that. I'm happy to revisit that on personnel to see if there might be another way to get the personnel committee a little bit more engaged in that process. Would that be okay?
I mean, I guess. I disagree. I do think that this isn't that hard or big of an ask. Because you just said, go through the process. They've done all these things. Personnel's meeting on a pretty regular basis. All it would take is, okay, this gives an opportunity for, rather than last minute approval, or being held hostage by the fact that, and maybe that is a little bit more over the top language, but it, rather than just, we have to move forward because they're already working in the district. They're already, this is all pending approval, or say we don't approve this person, now what? It seems like we're doing last minute work and reacting to what's presented on a report, and that's it. If there's,
Stacy, if I could just, people aren't working in a district prior to this. That is a rarity. That doesn't happen. And a lot of these are actually hires for new next year. That would be one. Two is, we do not want to put somebody's name on a piece of paper if they haven't accepted the job. Because if in fact we do that and they don't accept the job, we don't want the person who is number two to know they weren't number one. So there is some process here, like we have to agree, we have to reach out to the individual to say, do you want the job? And if they say yes, then we're bringing them forward. If they say no, we're going back to plan B. And I don't want to bring that name forward before we get a yes for plan A. Like that's the process you have.
Right, which is why, again, I understand the spirit of, I want us to figure out a way to do something different. I just think that it's better to talk about it at personnel, and figure out what might be a better way to engage that process by also respecting these situations that might come up. So that's all I'm asking, is that let's defer that to personnel and we'll come up with something, but for now, let's let me look those over, make sure that there's, nothing, like one of the questions would be, why, like at this time of year, why would somebody be resigning effective a couple weeks ago versus June 30th, right? I mean, I think there's some things that might come up on there that we may have a question to, and if I'm able to answer those, then when you guys get it then and you'll see it, and then I have an answer to those questions, it'll just help with that process. So I will bring it up in personnel again to talk about how we can, maybe come together and see if we can't create something else that would satisfy that. Okay?
Okay. Again, any of you, I've said this many times, I'm welcome, some of you that are on the board longer than others, and I've consistently said, if we have any questions about anything on these personnel reports, please call me, please stop in, whatever you'd like to do, and I'd be more than happy to explain the questions that you have. And or Colin, if you want to have a discussion, give me a call, we can talk about it. I don't quite understand what the real issue or question is. And it sounds like not you, but we have a very thorough, detailed hiring process because we are vetting people and positions. And I know we are getting better at different position control. It will be even better when we switch to skyward, but give me a call, I'll
give you a call. Yep.
And address any of your questions. I'm not quite understanding what the real concern is. More than happy to talk.
Well, I mean, I'll probably just attend the personnel meeting too, and we can voice my concerns there.
Perfect. Okay. Anything else? Ladies, yes.
I just add real quick to that conversation. I think whatever we settle on, we just gotta make sure that we keep in mind the candidate environment right now. We want to make sure we enable the staff to move quickly and.
Right, I'm right. There are a lot of moving parts. And I think that we can come together and get all these needs met. I do. It's just a matter of having some more time to talk about it and bring our heads together and come up with a solution. So it's not going away. Okay. So, next thing is meeting time and frequency. So one of the things that has been tradition that, I don't know how long it's been going on, but we have a general meeting and then we have a special meeting 2 weeks later. My understanding of special meetings are that that's what they are. They're special. And a lot of times we go over a lot of things. So for instance, if a committee has met sometime before that special meeting, we approve those minutes, which would not be in the special meeting realm. And I know there's been talk about, do we need a second meeting? Different things like that. So, 2 things. One, if you really want 2 meetings a month, then I think we should call them general meetings, rather than having them be a special meeting. So that's one thing. So I guess what I want to talk about is how often do we want our general meetings to be, and then also what time and day would we like those to be? Because I know we've talked about, we've had them in the afternoon, we've had them at night, we've had them at 7 o'clock, which I think is late. Sometimes when we like to go till 10 o'clock. So, just looking for some feedback. My feedback or my preference would be that we have one, and that we call a special meeting when we need it. And we've had to do that, right? I mean, we've had special meetings galore lately, because of our superintendent search. So I think Matthew Phipps, did you have your hand up?
Well, I just wanted to clarify what we do to define the difference between a special and a regular. I mean, because obviously there's no public input on special meetings, right? That's the big difference.
It's defined in our bylaws, what a special meeting is and what a regular meeting is.
So, yeah, I mean, hey, let's hear the opinion of everybody else if we want to move forward or continue to do it the way we are, or be.
Okay, Colin and Tony.
So I'm in favor of, if we just go with the one general and, then we keep special. One thing that we've always been told, is, we need to routinely meet, and have those specials primarily for personnel issues. So, when you guys do bring up that, personnel report, change, keep in mind how we're going to be, if we are going to be moving forward in a different manner in the regularity of which we meet. Because obviously that will also weigh into that as well. But I do agree though that, having the ability to discuss and hear from people on things that are, going to be on the agenda is beneficial and allows the public to then also weigh in and gives them opportunity to weigh in on things they see in the upcoming as well.
Tony.
I think if we can function without that extra meeting, then we should move in that direction. But I don't want to do that if it's going to disrupt any other business. You just got to make sure we figure out a way to, how do we do that if the personnel or whatever requires that.
Sure.
Yeah, I've always been struck by the similarities between the 2 meetings. I mean, do we have to have a high mass 2 times a month, or can we have a special meeting to deal with things that have to be dealt with then? I mean, I'm not opposed to meeting a second time, but I'd like a more streamlined, to the point. Why are we having this, and not have all the other reports at that time? I mean, I do think that stuff doesn't go bad in
Right.
So I'm in favor of maybe some streamlining.
Anyone else?
Just an idea too, like we could do our once a month regular meeting. We could call a special meeting, especially if it's something having to do with personnel, because honestly, that's usually the more time sensitive piece.
Yep.
We could call a special meeting and even make it virtual. It could be a simple 5-10 minute deal, right? We're only approving that item. Oh, it's my first thumbs up ever, Tony. So anyway, just a thought behind that.
Mr. Spalding.
I'm gonna give a very unpopular opinion, and I'm sure I'll get thumbs down from Tony. But I'm in favor of the general meetings. And the reason why I say that is as a second shift worker, when I was out there, I found it very hard to get up and hear public input. And a lot of times I felt that it would have been easier if I could get to them emails earlier. So in the interest of getting everybody's public input, that's where I stand with the second general meeting and having it earlier in the day for people to be able to, and also letting them speak as well. But I understand that that's not exactly a popular opinion, but that's kind of where I stand.
So I hear you there. I used to work third shift and, it's sometimes if things are going on during the day that, or if they're going on at night, you miss a lot of things. A lot of these meetings we miss. And that is a bummer. I agree. Been there. The only thing that I can say to that though is, if we were to have a communication from an individual and they want to weigh in and provide some public input, they can also, they can have their public input read by somebody, so that their voice can still be heard. A lot of people, they do written speeches and they do list them. Our meetings are recorded and they are put out there on YouTube. I've seen them on Facebook. There are a couple different spots. I'm very much for as much exposure to, and transparency to what transpires here as possible. I very much am. It's a very big tenet for myself. But I think that if we're going to be expecting the majority of parents to be participating, I think you're going to find more of them if they can do it in a live fashion versus turn on a recording and watch a meeting at the end of the day or something like that. So there's going to be more people that are going to utilize that later meeting rather than an earlier meeting. So I understand the need, and you're helping out those individuals, but I think you're accommodating less individuals than would be accommodated with a leader.
I understand, you make good points. I was just one of those lesser individuals that wasn't able to make it all the time. And,
But we promised to have just boring stuff, the second meeting will be okay. I mean, that's the way
That
school board
means-
meetings used to
That
be.
means that we're not gonna have a meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry.
for my way of speaking anyway, sometimes the things that I want to say, I'm able to get that point across better with voice inflection, demeanor, passion. It's going to come across better on a microphone. That's where like I said, I understand that that's not going to be a majority, but I want to make sure that my voice was out there.
Anybody else? No.
So personally, I would love to have less meetings, but I think the transparency is lacking. I mean, my phone's blowing up right now with a formal complaint. I had a phone call today from another employee, to be honest. And we're in some pretty hard times right now, and our community needs transparency. So, I mean, I agree with Matt Spalding. I would rather have 2 general meetings a month and give our community the voice that they need to hear so they can be involved in things. And yes, there are different means. So as of right now, I think we need to send a message to our community that we're with you 100% and we are ready to take on these challenges and these problems that are occurring in our schools daily. So that's where I feel that the work needs to get done now, and then maybe in the future, we could pull it back a little bit. But I mean, I have 2 complaints as of right now.
Okay,
What's
so,
going on?
well, hang on a second. So it's not an action item. I know. Okay, so one of the things that I want to say to that is, which I wanted to say before I have a little note here, but is that I really want our work to be done in committees. Committees, the public can come to committees. Again, there isn't a format that they can come up and speak at, but they can give their input, and we have brought those issues to committees. That's where the work, should be done at that committee level, and those can be streamed if we want them to be, and they are also recorded. So, again, with regard to and those meetings are longer. I mean, if you sat through a couple committee meetings lately, they've been longer. So that is going to be done.
I know,
That is going to be done. I just don't know that it has to happen at this general meeting, and then a second one already, I guess is what I'm saying. Because we're already gonna be meeting heavy by making the work of committees.
All right, so I understand it's not an actual item. However, this could be actual, and I would like to make a motion that we table this till the next meeting for further discussion and to hear from those individuals up in the
Okay. It's fair.
That's a good idea. That's not a bad idea.
Wayne, can you get a thumbs up?
I don't know if that's on top of
I'm trying to work with you.
I'm feeling a little bit.
I know, I'm not that cool, I guess.
Okay, so our next meeting is our general meeting, so let's go ahead, we're gonna have our general meeting, we'll table that, and we will talk about it as maybe executive committee.
There you
Together, toss some ideas around and hear from the community as well.
I guess I'll just add, I'm not totally against the idea, I'm just about efficiency. So if we can get the same amount of work or more done in less time, I think we'd all be interested in that outcome, so.
All right, excellent.
Give me a thumbs up.
Moving on to communication agenda items. So typically on our formal agenda, it's been on there probably since the Stone Age. There is a section called communication. I believe it's right at the beginning. There is no definition anywhere in the bylaws for this category on the agenda. What I've seen happen over the last year is that students will send us a thank you letter for a scholarship that they've gotten, and that will be read. But then one time we had someone want to talk about, well, I got a communication from like Matt Spalding, be like, okay, it's communication time. I just got this. I'm sorry, Matthew Pitts. Just got a communication, and would you read that at a meeting? So my suggestion would be is that we remove the communication agenda item, and what would happen is, is that, and I think we've talked about this before, at least I know we did on the executive committee, is that any correspondence that would come through, it would be forwarded to the president of the board, and the board would get it out to all the board members so that everyone knows, what's going on, and that would be forwarded then to the committee that would need to be. Because I think right now, again, everyone should know about the thank you letters, and nobody should be handling this stuff, on their own. So this is just a way to do that, and that we would not have that communication label on their agenda item, because it's just, there's really no, I see it creating more havoc than anything.
So one thing then with those communications that then are received by the committee, would the committee then refer those communications they receive and address to the board for file, to put on file?
That's what I would suggest, is that the committee looks at it. Is there any actionable item that we need to do, or is it that we're going to put this on file?
That it was received and
Correct.
there we go.
Yep.
So where on the agenda then would that be? That the communications from committee, would that be where in the consent agenda? Would that be part of the minutes? And then for a part of the minutes,
Yes.
would that be placed on file as part, and that would be part of the minutes?
Yes.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's expedient.
I guess the time I've been on the board, I think that slot on the agenda is being used for. And usually for not much, and I think if it vanished, nobody would notice, and I think that, we plenty of.
Yeah, right. And I think, again, those letters are super important, and I'm glad we get those. And, when we get them, they could be scanned, they could be sent to you, you can always look at it, hold on to it, and then also, the other issues that may come up again. I think we all get individual, issues sent to us. Let's act on those. Let's get them to a committee. Let's be responsive. And I think that'll work better.
Yeah, thinking back to when we had this discussion in executive committee, having rather than just one person receive something and maybe they don't check their email in time, or, they don't send it out, or they just let it sit. Then nothing happens. If you're just putting all, certain, the things that need to be addressed to the board, well, hey, maybe I got another idea on how maybe this could be handled rather than just one person. And we've seen more than one thing that maybe didn't, having another set of eyes on it was beneficial rather than just one person trying to be the hero of the day there,
And it's overwhelming too. I mean, I think when we get things, it's overwhelming, and it will be more effective if we can get it to that committee and have them address what's going on, and, talk to our directors, talk to our superintendent, and figure out how we want to collectively handle that. So, right? Awesome. So, Lori, if you want to remove that from our. All right, last thing on here, well, two things, but remarks from the board president. I had Lori add that at the last hour because I thought I had a lot to say and I can't remember what I was going to say. So all I can say is, what's that?
You already said it.
I probably did already say it. Just kind of piggyback on what Mark said, lots of activities going on. So, I encourage the board to participate in as many as you can, and our parents. And I went to the band concert last night, and that was fun. 32 seniors. Can you believe that, in the band? I can't imagine what our band's going to look like next year. That stage might be a little lonely, but yeah. So get involved in a lot of great things going on towards the end of the year. So, I know. I wanted to update you guys on our superintendent. Yes, thank you. So we're still doing our interim superintendent search. You saw from the minutes, we're going to have interviews next Thursday. We had a group meet yesterday of teachers and staff to sit down with our Joe Sheehan, who's our consultant, to just talk about what they would be looking for. And so we're going to start collecting those names of people and kind of narrow down who we would like to invite for an interview. So that's an update on that. Yes.
So is that next Thursday confirmed, or are we still holding open that back date?
That is, that's confirmed. That's the day that we are doing interviews.
Okay.
What are you doing?
Whether we have any interviews at that
Who's
time,
coming?
I don't know. We don't have our names yet. So,
What's your question?
We didn't put all the home people are getting sent to it.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what was going on.
Okay, just tell me now, when are we meeting?
Next Thursday, I believe at 2 o'clock.
So Stacy, then hold both dates open still?
Yes, I would.
How many candidates?
We don't know yet,
Oh,
because I don't
I
know,
see.
we haven't been given any
I
names
see.
or applications
Okay.
yet, so we just set that to make sure that we have the process rolling.
Well, don't we go through the next before we decide to do anything?
Well, our consultant's gonna give us the ones he suggested. He's also gonna
Oh, okay.
forward us the information that we can all look at it as well. So yeah, I mean, it's gonna be coming fast.
So he sent out questions and we have to kind of really those up a lot.
Yes, beyond,
Are we
by
gonna
the,
have a meeting before the?
I
before the
believe by
interview?
the 26th.
On Thursday, he wants you to pick your top three, listing it like your number one question, your number two question, your number three question, and then I need to forward those to him by Thursday.
Yes. And he gave a sample of the questions, but you can also make up your own. And I thought he did a great job of incorporating, what the characteristics that we were looking at. I mean, these weren't just canned questions. I mean, he intermingled the stuff that we had talked about, which I thought was great. So yeah, so make sure to get those. I would even say like tomorrow, if you could get those to Lori, what your three questions are that you'd like to ask at the interview. because then she can get that to me by Thursday. Okay. All right, anything else? Yeah, just any other remarks, kind of things. Okay, future meeting dates. I know we have some meetings that have already been put out there.
Yeah.
You want to say yours?
Yeah, so finance, we are meeting Wednesday, May 25th, 5 to 6:30. Angela, is that I could probably list off some of the things that were for the agenda. So currently, we're going to be discussing the transportation contract, the purchasing policy, regarding spending limits and how those go, the OPEB actuarial study. There will be some discussion about budget, the 22 to 23 budget, fund 80 options. And then there's also going to be discussion about how the board is how the board will be presented with the budget. Also, different for the 23-24 budget solutions and options to explore. That'll be tomorrow at 5 to 6:30. We'll be discussing that. We also have a meeting June 15th, 5 to 6:30, where we're going to be discussing health insurance renewal options so far, budget adjustments, Fund 46 capital improvement plan, budget access to the public, food service update, and our CISA 7 contract. Those are the two meetings that just touching on so far. There are other ones that are potentially out there, but just those two. If you notice though that we're tackling some of the, or discussing some of the funds, the thinking is that we take it in kind of a chunked out fashion, bit by bit, understanding portions of the budget. So if you can attend the finance meetings, it's going to be beneficial. That way then when it comes time to discuss the budget, it'll be, your understanding of it will be greater, hopefully. So I encourage those to attend that can, and we'll try to keep you updated as we go along.
Any other meetings?
Curriculum meeting, we will be having one on June 21st at 5 o'clock.
Wonderful. And then the ad hoc is.
Ad hoc, they're still meeting every Thursday. We'll be meeting again this Thursday at 1 o'clock.
Building and grounds meeting is Thursday at 4.
Okay.
At the shops.
At the shop?
Yep.
You said, okay. Okay, all right.
Is there,
Yes,
No, you started.
I'll refer to you, it's okay. Maybe you'll answer.
I believe you, the meeting on June.
Yes. That Wednesday,
At
right?
least the first portion of it, will be a joint. Not that I heard that from you, Matthew, I apologize, but we want to do a joint finance personnel committee meeting to talk about some things specific to health insurance.
Okay.
And
Sorry.
then, yeah, you respond, yeah, and then maybe, Stacey, we can talk about Klein, maybe
Okay.
after that first piece, if we have other personnel stuff, we can go do our own thing if we want.
Perfect.
Like the finance and other things. Yeah, well, that's great, so.
You want to do something?
Yeah, let's start something. Just
Okay.
to discuss that.
All right, you want to set up an executive committee meeting?
Sure.
Want to do that after our meeting?
Yeah, we can set that up and then the other one was, shoot, stuff in my head. Never mind, I'll think about it probably after the meeting, so.
So, our general board meeting will be on, obviously we have our special meeting that'll be coming up. Now that will be closed session because we're doing interviews. So just so everybody knows that, that'll be next Thursday, but then we'll have our general, can someone give me the date? 14th of June will be our next general. And we'll have public input if you'd like to speak. And I'm suggesting 5:30. Does that work for everybody rather than 7?
5:30 is not always good for you. If we could bump it out maybe just a half hour.
6 o'clock?
Yeah, I was really tight getting here today, so sometimes it's just.
6?
6 would be fine. 6 one.
6.
Thank
Okay,
you,
6
guys.
o'clock.
And girls.
Okay, anything else? All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to go. Very good.
Do I have a second?
Doesn't apply.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I did.
Okay, meeting adjourned.